saw a change. No man fine, woman acting strange. We no longer depend on man to earn a living. We going outside and earning we own shilling. Cause we woman have changed we course without remorse. Woman is boss. When it comes to substance and vantage performance, woman is boss. Who's the boss? The boss. Who's the boss? The woman's role we know as a miracle maker, wife, mother, teacher, etc. With the ability to combine all of these roles, well, you must agree it's a woman's world. Cause we woman have changed we course without remorse. Woman is boss. When it comes to quality, production and dignity, woman is boss. The sky is the limit where we are concerned. Woman, this wrong, we come out to burn. Love and respect is all that we earn. You'll be amazed what we could give in return. Now we woman have changed we course without remorse. Woman is boss. Talk about enduring, don't forget childbearing. Woman is boss. The boss. Who's the boss? The boss. Trinidadian woman is boss. Woman is boss. West Indian woman is boss. Woman is boss. Jamaica woman is boss. Woman is boss. Brooklyn woman is boss. Woman is boss. Miami woman is boss. Woman is boss. Canadian woman is boss. Woman is boss. European woman is boss. Tell them.
Hi guys, I'm back again. I'm begging 5 more minutes to get the authors downstairs, if you don't mind. Can you all hear me? Hear me now? 5 more minutes to get the authors downstairs. They'll be here shortly. Okay? Thank you.
Show them. Who's the boss? The boss. The boss. West Indian woman is
She was lucky to marry a rich think I turned it on. Yeah, on, but it's still muted. Good, good.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for being here. My name's Lyda Debin. I'm the executive director here at the Center for Fiction. How many of you are joining us for the first time? Can I see a show of hands? Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. The Center for Fiction is a 200-year-old cultural arts nonprofit, and our mission is to encourage people to read and value fiction and to support and celebrate its creation and enjoyment. Our goal is to invest in the future of stories and to encourage more people of all ages and histories to read and write. And here at the center, we create the opportunity to share that experience with others, building empathy and enlarging our understanding. We hold public events like this one, reading groups, writing workshops, a kids read program, all offering vibrant, accessible, inclusive programs that welcome a wide community to experience the joy of story. We support early career writers with our first novel prize and our Emerging Writer Fellowship. So please don't let this be the last time you come in. Visit our site, sign up for our mailing list, follow us on social media, become a member, and come back and see us soon. So for tonight, really wonderful program. I want to express so much appreciation for the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival for 6 years of partnership. Not only did they help us curate a dedicated Caribbean fiction collection for our member library upstairs when Center for Fiction moved here, in honor of the present and past community here in the neighborhood, but they also bring leading Caribbean authors and books to this stage. So thank you so much, Marcia, Melanie, and Melissa. If we could have a hand for the group. All right, and now the logistics. So after the talk, we'll have an audience Q&A. So if you're here in the room, raise your hand and one of our wonderful interns will bring you a mic. Please do use the mic so that the audience on the live stream can hear you. And for those of you joining on the live stream, please add your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to some of those before we break for the signing line. So speaking of signing, Edwidge was kind enough to pre-sign books, and so we'll be doing a personalization line after the event, just on the other side of this wall. And so we'll come back with instructions on the lineup for that after the event. And so with much admiration, I'd like to welcome to the stage Marcia from the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival. She'll say a little bit about the festival, and our authors will join as well.
I get to do this. So y'all were roasting me because I'm hearing woo woo, and it was not me. But that's okay. I get to do this several times for the next 4 days, and it is the highlight of my life. And I didn't think it could get any better than me being on a stage with the marvelous Miss Edwidge Danticat and Roxane Gay. And if you know Roxane's work, you would admit that it's almost tangential for Edwidge, that there's a connection between the two of them, and Edwidge has paved the way for so many writers and so many readers and lovers of literature. It's truly an honor to be here this evening. Thank you to our sponsor, especially the Center for Fiction, and Lyda, Melanie, who's the fourth M, Eliana, and the wonderful team, Scott, and all of them who literally opened their homes, this house to us, this body to us every single year. And we pour in the way that Caribbean people do, riotous, noisy, with rum. We're constantly negotiating and kind of charting a new way. And there's nothing more validating than having a very big fish like the Center for Fiction support the work that we do. The BCLF is 6 years old this year, and our theme is Faces of the Caribbean. And it's really a toast and a nod to the emblematic attributes, ideas, people who make up this body, this archipelago, this place, this culture, this tapestry. And we couldn't do this without Miss Edwidge Danticat. She is mononymous. She has achieved the kind of infamy that everyone wants to be known by, a single name, one word, Madonna, Prince. You get where I'm going. There's Edwidge. You say her name and everyone knows who she is. At the BCLF, we have lots of programming. This festival is our capstone. We have a podcast, we have a short story contest, and for the first time, the winner of one of our prizes is here with us this evening. So each year, this mission keeps revealing itself in new ways, and there are new things that we do despite having a plan that we kind of just throw out every single time. We don't follow any script, like I'm not following this script because that's just what we do. I want to express thanks again to the Center for Fiction for our long-running partnership. We house the only Caribbean fiction collection in New York here. It was curated by us and supported by their librarians, and we turn it over all the time. I encourage you to become a member so that you can partake of the collection as well. Thanks to our other partners, the New York University, 10 to 1 Rum, Weeksville Heritage Center, Akashic Press, the Security Zone, and Brooklyn Poets. All of them help sustain the work that we do as a very tiny ship with a big engine. We couldn't have done this, and we cannot do this without the support of our sponsors. I'd also like to thank our other sponsors, the ones who feed our guests and keep us all happy: Sugared, Sugarcane Brooklyn, Chef Picky and Tanti Darlene, Villa Negra, and Patrick Rassonive, who creates our imaging for us every year, because as Caribbean people, sound and image and color and story, they're all one and the same. They go hand in hand. We're going to start off tonight's festivities with something a little bit different. You were given something in your hand in a glass that I hope you did not get rid of. So I'm going to ask you to raise a toast with me to Miss Edwidge Danticat. And before we do that, I would like to also present you. We had some help from the New York, the Office of the Mayor, who created the citation, and we want to present it to you in service or in recognition of the amazing work that you do and how you create a counter-narrative to what being Caribbean means in this space. This comes on the heels of a highly reported violent Labor Day celebration, and that has dominated the news. And in my opinion, America is a violent place. So the violence that takes place at Labor Day that gets highlighted in the media really works against the excellence and the resistance and the work that we as Caribbean American people do every day. So again, it is my honor, and I'm so happy that the mayor found time, and he thought that this occasion was worthy enough to present you with the citation. So would you help me honor Miss Edwidge Danticat by raising a toast? So we don't have champagne, we have the champagne of the Caribbean, which is rum, generously provided by our sponsor, 10 to 1, in honor of Miss Edwidge Danticat. Here, here. Cheers.
Wow, thank you. That's so great. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
And if you drank your rum before, you don't get another one.
Okay, well. Thank you.
Miss Edwidge Danticat is of great value to the humanities and to the Caribbean. To her Haitian community, she has been a steady reminder of your own heritage of excellence, of your lineage of griots and of intellectuals. And of course, she reminds us every single day that our freedom is worth fighting for, because Haiti, as the first Black republic in the New World, really began this series of events that led to our emancipation, and the emancipation that as Black people we continue to fight for every day. When you coined famously to me that the Caribbean American and the hyphen in Caribbean American is an island, it validates the work that we do at the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival. I began reading the collection We're Alone, and I put it down because we had to do this tonight I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And because I can't wait to hear what she has to say, I'm going to make way for the marvelous Miss Edwidge Danticat and Miss Roxane.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Make the guest cry, why don't you? Thank you. Thank you so much for those lovely words. Thank you to the Caribbean Festival Center for Fiction and for all of you for coming. Thank you, Roxane, for agreeing to this conversation. This is our first time on stage together, but when my students start, I teach now, when my students start going wild over Roxane, they're like, do you know her? I sound really old. I always say, I know her parents.
Which is also the most Haitian thing you could possibly say.
And so actually they think that's even more intimate than knowing you. They're like, oh my gosh, you really know her. You know her parents. And so I do know her parents. So thank you for agreeing to do this. We decided to start with a brief reading. I will read the preface, and it explains the title and many things. So, We're Alone, a preface. Your hands, give them to me. Let me speak in simply words you cannot forget. We're alone, and the sea and the cradling palms are thick. Wolan shore. I spent many years trying to find the original poem, Plage, from which these lines were translated. I came across the English translation in a 1934 book given to me in the 1990s by a friend. The book is The Poets of Haiti, 1782-1934, and the translator is an American writer named Edna Worthley Underwood. Underwood was born in Maine in 1873. I don't know how she ended up in Haiti during the latter end of the 1915-1934 US occupation, but she sure had friends in high places, including Haitian President Sténio Vincent, who wrote the introduction to her book. Readers will find in The Poets of Haiti the echo of all great human emotions, Vincent declared. Some of the poems in the collection felt intimate, particularly those by the Jérémie-born poet Roland Chassagne, whose words read like secrets. We're alone is the persistent chorus of the deserted, as Roxane has written, no one is coming to save us. Yet, we're alone can also be a promise writers make to their readers, a reminder of the singular intimacy between us. At least we're alone together. Writing for me, particularly writing essays, is a quest for that kind of aloneness, togetherness, as well as something akin to what the Haitian American anthropologist and artist Gina Athena Ulysse has labeled rassemblage, which she defines as assembly, compilation, enlisting, regrouping of people, spirits, ideas, and things. After trying to locate the original Chassagne poem on my own, it finally occurred to me to reach out to Régine Chassagne, a Haitian-Canadian musician and one of the lead singers of the indie rock group Arcade Fire. Roland Chassagne was her grandfather. Régine's father, Stanley, sent her a screenshot of the poem, Plage, which was published in a 1933 collection by Roland Chassagne called Le Tambourin Voilé, the Veiled Tambourine. I might have translated the verse differently, if perhaps less lyrically. Laisse-moi prendre tes mains et te dire des choses inoubliables. Allow me to take you by the hand and tell you some simple and unforgettable things, because we were alone near the shore under this canopy of palms, and we loved each other. The pleasure was intense, indescribable. In April 1963, during the Duvalier dictatorship, Roland Chassagne was arrested. He was accused of being in possession of contraband literature. He disappeared into Fort Dimanche and was never heard from again. He was working on an unfinished novel, a copy of which his son Stanley still has. Roland Chassagne's name eventually appeared on a 1978 Inter-American Commission on Human Rights list of political prisoners who had died at Fort Dimanche. Still, Roland Chassagne's words remain, both in the original and in somewhat interpretive translations. Writers die, but not their canopy of language, just as Roland Chassagne still sometimes whispers to me, "Dear reader, please allow me to reach for your hand. We're alone." Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's interesting, the title, We're Alone, because we're not, but we are. And the writing community can be a very warm and embracing place, and sometimes not. But one of the things that people, I hope, know about Edwidge is that she is the most generous writer, I think, out there. And as a Haitian American writer, I know one writer has been more generous to me than Edwidge Danticat. I remember when my first novel came out, I sent it to her and I was like, "Would you blurb it?" And she said yes, just like that. And most writers don't, and that's okay. But how do you feel about your place in the Haitian writing community at this point in your career? And what compels you to offer so much generosity to the writers that you share this space with?
Thank you for that. I mean, I remember actually when I got your Untamed State, I was like, oh my gosh, I was up all night reading that. So it was definitely a wonderful introduction to you. I'm having flashbacks because I was having a similar conversation with Julia Alvarez when her book came out, The Cemetery of Stories, and we talked about this thing of having been out here for a while. I think in my case, like 30 years now. And I mean, the way I see my place is just, and she was saying this too, is this like the role, if there is one, is not to always have this like valedictory thing, but to kind of like slide back and like let others come forward. And it's just been wonderful to see, just in Caribbean literature overall, but also in the Haitian literature space, to see so many, young, of course we could have more, to see so many coming out that you may not be able to blurb everybody, because if you blurb everybody, it doesn't mean as much too. So, but there's just so many new faces, new writers. That's just wonderful, because it's not helpful to be the only one or one of a few. I think it's the more the better.
Absolutely. One of the most difficult things about living outside of the country that you're from and being part of a diaspora is that the home that you return to is not the home you left. Mm-hmm. How do you reconcile that difference, that space between the home you remember, the home you left, and the home that continues to evolve and is a complicated place?
Yeah. So when I was writing Breath Eyes Memory, I hadn't been back to Haiti for a while, and the only way I could have gone, because I started pretty young, was with my parents, mm-hmm. and my parents would always say next year, and but as soon as I could go on my own, I started going, and immediately, and this is probably the longest stretch that I haven't been back, but immediately your relationship changes when you're actually going, and seeing the places. And I have two daughters, and my girls were born. I really wanted them to know, I wanted them to know Haiti like in a very, like it's any other place, mm-hmm. And I remember, my Layla, Layla, my spicy one. So Layla was like three, barely learning to speak. And we're in this, every time we travel, she thought every place was New York, because New York was like her, it's like the Haitians of old, when New York, but it means you're going anywhere in the United States. So Layla was like, every place, like you end up in, New Mexico is New York. And I remember one time we were on a road like in the countryside in Haiti, she's like, this is not New York. So I think that's also like you have like a parallel relationship as a person who goes back. It depends on kind of the moment. Yeah.
It's funny that the countryside, because my mom always refers to everything that she sort of doesn't care for, or that it doesn't match her experience in Haiti. She calls it the countryside. Oh, no, that's the countryside. And I'm always like, In one of the essays in this collection, A Rainbow in the Sky, you're thinking through some of this idea of return, but also climate change and the many natural disasters that tend to strike the Caribbean. And I was curious about how you decided to write that essay, and how you account for an always changing Haiti in your writing.
I think now, because, when you think back to the older times, like my parents' time and your parents' time, perhaps, my dad used to do this thing where he would record a cassette, then go to JFK, find someone who was going to Haiti, and then call my uncle and say, a man in a yellow shirt will bring you a cassette. And my uncle would go to the airport. And now there's I know every single thing that's happening with my cousins in Haiti, through the WhatsApp, they film things. So I think that's also another layer of connection. And then there is like those intimate things that you're dealing with, but also the larger things that are changing, just like in the news that we consume all the time. So I even writing these essays, for me, like with Gina's Rassemblage, is a way of processing the change from a distance, definitely. But I think we do it at home. We do it with our families. So this is also a way to do it on paper.
That connectedness, that sort of going to the airport and dropping off a tape, it's something that seems very specific to our culture. Everywhere I travel, my dad is like, look for the Haitian. And he told me this when I was going to Iceland.
And you will, if you look hard enough, you will find.
I found her.
Yes.
I thought he was like, being funny, and he was like, no, look for the Haitian when you get to Iceland. So he's never wrong about these things. So when I got to Reykjavik, I asked everyone I saw, do you know the Haitian? And like the first 6 people were like, no. The 7th person was like, oh yeah, she owns a coffee shop here.
Oh yeah. Well,
she married an Icelander.
That happened like in Sweden. I went and so everybody was like, you have to know this Haitian doctor. And then I said to myself, I bet that there's going to be the Haitian doctor, but there's going to be an association. And so 2 days later, I'm at this lunch with the Haitian doctor in Sweden with the association. So we travel, man. We
reach. There's a lot of scholarly work about your writing, and some of that work that I have found most compelling is the diaspora studies that talks about the tension in your writing between the rootedness of history, culture, and place, and the often contradictory and creative imaginary, which often feels like a common characterization for diasporic writers. And I remember reading an interview with you in Bomb magazine from about 10 years ago, where you talked about how you don't think of yourself as a person from multiple worlds or as someone who carries the burden of exile. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I think because I was like living in Florida these like last 20 years, the idea of who was in exile was so immediate, right? In terms of recent arrivals. And I come like my parents' era, they were so much, writers were exiled and so I just felt, it's like, okay, I was kind of a come with kid, right? They send for you kind of kid, which I thought was a gentler form of migration. So every time someone would call me an exile, I felt like some of my parents maybe, or that generation was exile, but I felt more closer to like an immigrant. The multiple worlds, yeah, I think we all carry that, and especially that duality of always having Haiti in mind, Haiti present, and the art, like at home, do through the food in different ways. But I think, initially when I came to Brooklyn at age 12, I used to, I would go to the Brooklyn Public Library to find books by Haitian writers. And then that was a way for me to go home. I thought, like, I'm not going to be able to go back. But I don't, like, I feel like the exile is a very specific category. That's someone whose parents sent for them young. I didn't feel like was my particular condition, if you will.
In that same interview, you were pretty steadfast about not referring to ideas around exile or even motherhood as anxieties. Instead, you referred to them as hauntings. What haunts you today?
Oh, I mean, we were talking a little bit about that guns, the situation in Haiti with guns. Definitely, that's a haunting, and the sort of the constant fears that one has when they have, when you have children, their future, the future of the world, and things like that. It's just like it manifests differently in different ways. But we're lucky, I think, as people who create, that we get to channel that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be like fun to be around. It's sort of like, whenever I'm like a little grumpy, my husband's like, "Go right now, go right now."
Yes, I know that life, and when I'm told to go right, I'm like, "You go right." On its face, this book appears to be a slender volume. It's 8 essays, 125 pages, but it's a really rich and challenging text. It's deeply researched, deeply knowledgeable, deeply felt. How do you assemble a collection like this, and what was your ambition for the book?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm curious because we're celebrating is it the 10 or 15-year anniversary of Bad Feminist?
10th.
10. So yeah. So I want you to answer that. I want you to answer that too, because I think we all have that dilemma with both essay collections and short story collections. You get to that point where you're like, oh, I have enough. Like, I mean, and then, but you can't put, I never want to put in everything I have just for the sake of putting everything I have. So I went through and there are a lot of things I eliminated. There are a lot of things I weaved into other things because there's a natural repetition because it's all coming from you, the person. So with this, I went through. I was like, what holds up over time since the original publications, and what can I write that's new that can kind of wrap its arms around the rest of it? And then I came across that Georgina Elise, who's a friend who she wrote a book. A collection called Why Haiti Needs New Narratives, which goes along with what we're talking about. But I remember this idea of rassemblage. I felt like, wow, like permission, like this is a kind of rassemblage, and some of the essays don't go where you think they're going to go. It's kind of, some of them are braided. But I thought I just like really clung on to, I'm like, I'm going to make a rassemblage with my collection. So how about you with Bad Feminist?
It is partly about what holds up and what feels relevant. And with Bad Feminist, when I was putting it together, I didn't know any better. So I was just like, I'll put it all in there. Why not? I mean, I left some things out, but I was mostly thinking of it. I decided to split the book into sections. And if the essay felt organic to that section, I knew it belonged in there. And overall, I just wanted each of the essays in the collection to reflect my understanding of feminism at the time, my experience of feminism. And the book is still around 10 years later, so I guess those instincts worked.
with a very, an even more pink cover.
Yeah, they leaned in all the way. Yeah. You mentioned something really interesting, the natural repetitions. And as I recently released a second collection, it doesn't matter. But one of the things I noticed was the natural repetitions. And sometimes I was like, okay, girl, pick a new lane. But I remember many years ago, a writing teacher told me that good writers tend to write the same story over and over again, and they just get better at it. So what is the story that you find yourself being drawn to over and over again?
I don't know, because I'm working on this thing now that came out of this sort of hoax of a mass shooting I thought I was in, and that's not a place where I thought I would go. And then, and so it's like, but I see that it all falls into this idea of like precarity, So then when I was writing after my parents, both my parents passed away, and I was writing The Art of Death, I was like, oh, that's also was about mortality. So I think I'm drawn to stories about mortality, and sort of how we live amidst, precarity, like in many different forms. And, and that's the thing, as the older, I'm 55 now, which I think is a nice even age, like the 5'5". I never, I've had not felt like that about my age since 33, which I, at least in my house, they would say l'âge du Christ, since it's the age that Christ died on the cross, you're supposed to be a new person on the other end. But a lot happened to me that year. I got married, so it did. L'âge du Christ holds up, but but the older I get, the more the more you get that fear of repeating yourself in obvious ways. But in Create Dangerously, I quote from this Albert Camus, who was saying we all have three stories that we're constantly retelling in many different ways, and sometimes one shifts, and sometimes they shift, but that's the material that we're working with, and of course it gets to be revised and revisited differently as you age, but as you get older, as your parents get older, and you just kind of see the whole span of life traveling before you.
Especially when you have both children and parents who are in a space of needing you a little more or a little differently.
Yeah, it's called the church ladies would say, you're in the gap. Yeah.
And our generation is in the gap. And you also wrote a beautiful essay, really a series of vignettes called They Are Waiting in These Hills. And in it, you offer reflections on a number of influential writers. And I would just love to hear more about why these were the writers that spoke to you most for that essay.
So in Create Dangerously, I talk a lot about the Haitian writers who affect, like Jacques-Stéphane Alexis, like Marie Chauvet, affected me. And this, over the years, I'd had the opportunity to write, as I know you recently had to do, we did the same book, I think,
yes,
but different edition, like the Go Tell on the Mountain with James Baldwin.
For the James Baldwin thing,
yes. And then Audre Lorde, I was once, asked to follow that, her essay in Grenada Revisited, and to kind of follow the track of that essay after a hurricane. And, Alexis Pauline Gumbs has the biography of her. And I was like, man, she wrote about hurricanes. I was like, oh, I should have, that should have been in that essay. So that's the constant revisioning. So they're it's called Traveling With, because I feel like these are writers that I'm still traveling with. And, of course, Ms. Morrison and Paul Marshall, who I knew and who were extremely kind to me. So yeah, and I really wanted to group them together, and that sort of, and I'm hoping I was telling a friend, I was like, I'm growing this vision of heaven that I hope there's room for me after, that I'll join them in the hills when my time comes.
Absolutely, and it was interesting to see the way those writers were in conversation with one another. And I found the Baldwin vignette particularly interesting in light of his 100th birthday this year. We both contributed to this 100th anniversary edition of re-releases of his novels. And the exercise that he engaged in that 1960 address at San Francisco State University was fascinating. And so, as a thought exercise and with the knowledge of Baldwin's larger point, if you were asked to repeat this, what kind of novel might you pretend to write in front of an audience?
I feel like this audience might have novelists in it, so I wouldn't. It would be like a weird workshop, people would be shouting from the. And it's interesting, that talk is a beautiful talk, because it's both written and spoken, where he's in front of this college crowd and is saying let's pretend we're writing a novel, and puts in. But he has also some very interesting critiques about he doesn't. I mean, just like the way Baldwin talks about love, love is a growing up, love is war, and the same thing about novel. We've all read that scathing Everybody's Protest novel.
I teach that essay.
Where you wouldn't want to be in his crosshairs. but I'm probably like you. I'm just kind of like such a in the corner by myself kind of writer. I couldn't imagine writing something in public or even trying to, I feel like workshop in MFA was enough of that. Like I've had that experience around a table with a bunch of people. So and we all, you want to not write by committee, but the way he was talking about it just was so smooth in the way that creating art has its parallel of creating a life, creating a meaningful life, creating a country. So there was so much I felt like you could be extracted there. That he was talking about novels, but he was also talking about something so much greater.
In the essay, By the Time You Read This, which I thought was incredibly compelling, you play with this idea of how we often don't get the final say on how our Black bodies are labeled. But I was particularly taken with the idea of you writing a letter to your daughters that's your own version of James Baldwin's My Dungeon Shook. And so would you be willing to share one thing that you've included in that letter for your daughters and something you might suggest to others as they think about what they should write in a letter to the most important people in their lives?
And the actual thing that I have for my daughters, I started, one of the things that, because my mom died at home with us and my daughters were kind of running around and I remember one time, my daughter was rather big, but she wanted me to hold her and someone who was visiting was like, oh, put her down. And then my mom said, let her carry her daughter the way she's carrying me, so that she could carry her. So that, that's when, so I actually have a little notebook that I write things for my daughters when they think of it, not like a letter, but thoughts. And half of them, when I say them in front of them, they're like, cringe.
Oh my God,
it's all like really like hearty things, like quoting Morrison, "You're your best thing," which I hope like when they're older they'll read. But I think I would say, especially for young women, and I said this to my daughters, I was like, I don't think I could live in your time. There's no sort of like you live in public all the time in a way, like, and everything you're not invited to because it's broadcast, and all your friends are there, and so there's just so much, I guess, like a different kind of resilience that's required to be a young woman. But I think that the most important thing of self-worth, which sounds really simple, to you're enough. You're enough.
Which I think every young woman, and frankly every young person, needs to hear. One element of your work that has often spoken to me is the way that you blend history and imagination, reality and fantasy. And of course, we see this a lot in your fiction. How do you think about the imaginary space and magical realism and the ways in which you can go beyond the world we know into the world of imagination?
And this is something I think you've also addressed, and going safe from this space of like autobiography and the personal, into fiction, right, where people already, like, to this day, in Breath Eyes Memory, people are always asking me about my child, like Brigitte. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, she's all right, she's well. And so where folks like assume that that there is no imagination, right? That it's just kind of like you're reworking your life. Even, of course, the things spring from inspiration and things that we've encountered. But one of the things that I've always, like the writing that's sometimes like referred to as magical realism, which a lot of people say began with like Jacques-Stéphane Alexis in part in Haiti, is that it's sort of how like mundanities in a way to someone. Like sometimes you'll have someone who told you, oh yeah, and then they got, like in my family, it was like, oh yeah, and then they got to the crosswalk and they thought it was a dog, but it was really two people. And and you're like, oh yeah, like, and so there's like kind of like there's this whole other world of the imaginary, but that's also like hyped up by storytelling, by oral storytelling that makes the imaginary like seems almost like a news broadcast, like the téléjournal almost, right? And so that to me is something that I've always wanted to also integrate, that we live, in different decibels. Like when my mom passed away, and I remember a friend called and said, have you had a dream about your mom, or is she still traveling? And I thought, oh, I love this idea of her traveling. I was like, I guess she'll come when she's done traveling. And sure enough, like I had a pink coat when I was studying abroad, like in Paris during my junior. I had a pink coat that I wore all the time. And then sure enough, after that conversation, I had a dream of my mom really long wearing that coat. Oh. And I thought, that's like, how do you, like, that's not something that's like it's just part of the, and then at some point you just wrap your arms around that. And I think people do it in like outside of story and in like, this is how I live my life kind of way. That's also beautiful, because sometimes the actual like day-to-day is so harsh that we need that kind of imaginary to survive.
And one of the things that I love most in your work is that you make space for that, and that you treat it as legitimate when oftentimes it can be demeaned. And in the Chronicles of a Death Foretold, you're navigating assassination and prophecy, and you're really showing what these narrative capabilities of this technique can be beyond fiction. Can you talk a little bit more about the prophecy of Laura Senatus and the assassination of Jovenel Boisé?
Yeah. So after, everybody who's like Haitian who lives with an elder, that the YouTube is going on a lot. and there are certain like characters on Haitian YouTube who are, of course, like the news guys. And then, and so my mother-in-law one time was watching this and then we saw this woman who's like, she's a prophetess, and she had predicted before Jovenel Moïse was like assassinated, and that he was going to be. She tried to go tell him. She tried to go, and then all of a sudden after it happened, she became a kind of celebrity. And so I thought, when I was thinking of like the way to, you've told that that approach of like an ordinary, like just like a person who had this prophecy, and then once that prophecy materialized, that person was like, oh, now I'm going to be president. That's the next prophecy. Of course, like we all want to be president, right? And so it was like that, just like how that works, and the feverish of that, of that imagining. And it was also, it reminded me a bit of that the assassination reminded me a bit of that book Chronicle of a Death Foretold, where even to the point the president himself had said, like, well, you might assassinate me, so that whole, just the way that these things, like when you're looking back years from now to see how did, we know the news part, we know like when the people do the news, it's almost like they've replaced the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, like that sort of thing they say with like since the assassination. So, but then how does like sort of like these other ways that manifest in daily life is what I wanted to explore with the prophetess, but also to acknowledge like this super daily reality of my life with all the people, like the elders especially, I know, who kind of vacillate between WhatsApp and YouTube, and they have their personalities, they know all the characters, and it's a new reality for older people who have been dreaming of going back all that, but this is as close as they get. They get Haiti narrated to them through YouTube, and they're it's like the radio used to be.
It's fascinating. I never would have pegged my parents as people who would be interested in Haitian YouTube. Oh my God. The number of things that my dad sends me on WhatsApp every day. The special teas that we're supposed to drink for COVID. And like they'll say that they'll look me dead in the eye and be like, "Did you take your tea yet?" No, but I sure did take the vaccine. But it means something. It's serious to them. And then my second favorite thing is Haitian TikTok, which is so good. Have you found your way to Haitian TikTok yet?
I know some of the comedians, let's say, like Success Junior and
I know that you're teaching now at Columbia University. And so you were at Barnard as a student, and now you are a faculty member. What is it like to return to that? I know they're different schools, but connected across the street. What does it feel like to be back as a professor, and what does teaching bring? What do you like most about teaching?
Well, I mean, the most wonderful thing about teaching is that you get to hang out with some really smart young people, and it's just, I mean, they're much smarter than I was when I was that age, and then to go back, to just have conversations with them that range from just has such a range, and my daughter is 19, so it's interesting to see her tribe, right? Like, and to see different versions of her and different young people. So this is my second year in, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it very much. And I guess one of the things I think the perks is that you get to read, that you get to teach things you want to learn more about. You get to read a lot. And so going back to Barnard, it just feels like sometimes I feel like I'm in a time warp. Except I was, much more, I was the first person like in my family to go to college. I went to Clara Barton High School down the street, and so that seemed like I was shocked how close it was, but how much of a different world it was. And so I think I can. Like every time, like I see young people, and I think, especially if they're stressing, I was like, it gets better. Hopefully, we don't know these days, so much unprecedented things.
I know sometimes I worry that I can't promise my students it gets better because I don't know that it does.
I don't know, yes, actually. But young people are determined to make it better, which is...
So we're, in Haiti, in the U.S. rather, we hear a lot of different stories about Haiti. There are a lot of predominant narratives, and that narrative has sort of evolved, but mostly, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, the upheaval, blah, blah, blah. And yet the realities of Haiti seem to get lost, particularly on an international stage where people might be focused on areas that, for whatever reason, garner more cultural attention. What is the most important thing you think people need to know about Haiti today?
That it's so much more than what you see on the news. And I don't mean it in this way that, let's ignore Port-au-Prince, like, let's surrender. I'm not of the crowd that's like, let's surrender Port-au-Prince. No. But I think there's so much physical beauty to Haiti that people don't get to see. And they're people, artists, feminists, or people who are really, really working hard, not just in a scale like in a community scale. It's beautiful country, full of amazing, incredible people. It's like everything I'm saying sounds very cliched, but I think just like sometimes we're just stuck on one thing, which is an urgent problem, which is the problem with the guns that the U.S. needs to stop, like the gun flow there for but there's also this whole other side to Haiti. It's a beautiful place. It's a suffering, beautiful place.
It is. And, it's always interesting, like, you hear these narratives and then you see the ambition of, especially the young Haitians who want so much for themselves. It always makes me hope that the narrative will change so that people understand the complexities of the country. And I mean complexity in a good way.
Yeah. And that the situation too will change.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I have a question I'd love to ask every writer before I open it up to the audience. And that is, what do you like most about your writing?
That it exists. because there's that thing where you go back and there are things that I've written that feel like I just had a fever dream. I'm like, when was that? When did that happen? So I just always feel very, very lucky, blessed, privileged that I'm able to do this work. What about you? What do you like most about your writing?
Oh, I mean, yes, that I get to do it. I never in life imagined that I would be able to be a writer, like an actual writer. But also that I still love it. I still get excited by it. I still get frustrated by it. But that I'm still willing to try new things. I'm almost 50 years old, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I seem to be willing to learn new tricks still. Mm-hmm. And so I do like that about my writing.
Yeah, and then there's that joy thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you read something you struggled with, mm-hmm. and you're like Ms. Morrison used to do that. She's like, that's really good. So it's kind of like you're like, that's not bad.
Mm-hmm. Once in a while, I take a look at something and I'm like, I put my foot in that. Yeah. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions for Edwidge. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and an intern will come to you with a microphone. And
they can also ask you questions. You can also ask Roxane questions. Am I making you work extra hard?
No, not at all. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. So.
Hello. I've read every word you've ever written. I love you, absolutely. And I'll stand up. Sorry. And I was wondering how you take care of yourself, because some of the topics you write about, as you've talked about, is just so difficult. How do you engage in self-care within the process of writing?
Yeah, thank you for that and for the kind words. I mean, I think if you spoke to the people in my life, they would tell you I don't take care of myself. I don't sleep nearly enough. But for me, it sounds strange. Like when some people are like, "What's your hobby?" I'm like, "Writing is my hobby." I do no sports. I play no music. I just love to write. So I mean, the writing is for me a kind of self-care. It really, really kind of helps me to navigate the rest of my life, the other things in my life, for sure. So writing is my self-care. I recommend if you're a young writer starting out, take up running, do those things that I never because if I try to do these other things, I'm like, oh, my story. So, but I consider it a kind of self-care.
Other questions? Oh, there's one here in the middle, toward the wall.
Thank you. This was such a fruitful conversation. I guess I wonder, is there a difference between how your writing is received in Haiti versus the diaspora? And if so, does that matter?
Okay. I mean, it does matter. So when my book was first published, there were two of us who were writing in English. It was me and a woman, and Christine Dodesky, who had written a book called Under the Bone. And I remember going, I would go to things in Haiti, and people were like debate. And there was a writer, Micheline Dussek, who was writing in Spanish. And so there was a kind of debate. It was like, is she Haitian? Is she American? And of course, the subject matter thing, why is she making us with a breath-eyes memory? But now, there writers, they're young writers. We've had this different migrations. In New York City, you see it. Young people who come to these schools, my brothers are teachers who speak Portuguese, who are Haitian, who speak Portuguese, who speak Spanish because they were born in Chile or or Brazil, and you have young writers in Chile who are of Haitian descent, and Dominican Republic writing in Spanish, writing in English. You have folks like Roxane, Edwidge. So I think it's less. The more of us there are, the more there's that. But to be read in Haiti, you have to have translation. So I had the honor. They have something called Livre en Folie in Haiti, which is the big fair. And I remember going, like, they have a guest of honor. I was guest of honor, I think, in like 2012. And it's like, it's the longest signing you've ever done. Like, you sit there, you sign all day. And then they stick a sandwich in you. But you're signing all day. But for that, we were able to do very cheap editions of the translations of the book so that I can say there are copies of my books in Haiti. So, I mean, I meet young people who read it. Some people like, some people don't. But after the Livre en Folie, after that experience, I had I have more readers in Haiti. But translation, just like it works the other way, of translating Haitian writers into English or translating, you're translated by like Stanley Payan, right? Who's a Haitian novelist in Canada, translates Roxane. So the fact that they're translated and then of course not in Creole, in French, but Breath Eyes Memory is translated into Creole. But you have more readers once you have the translation.
Thank you both so much. I'm such a huge fan of your work, and I'm just so grateful that my friend has me here today. My name is Arlene. I'm going to Haiti on Sunday, and I packed Create Dangerously and IET for this trip. So my question for all of you, especially for you, Edwidge, is when you think about your daughters and Haitian children from the diaspora and who are in Haiti, what are the kinds of stories that you think children need right now? I'm a children's book author. I wrote a book called Back Home, Storytime with My Father, and it's all about a little girl who hears stories about IET from her dad. So I would love to know, what do you think children really need right now?
Well, they need your book.
Yes, right? They do. But what topics?
Spell your full name so that people can get your book.
Arlene, not pronounced Arlene, pronounced Arlene, Elizabeth Casimir, so Casimir.
All right, and your book is called?
Back Home.
Back Home.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, books like yours for sure. And what would you say?
Well, when I was growing up, we were raised in the middle of nowhere, and oftentimes in Omaha, Nebraska, where my dad's company was located. And yet we knew we were Haitian. We never had any doubt. And there was a little tiny ass Haitian community in Omaha. There were 5 families that would drive from up to 200 miles away and get together every month. And the parents would be upstairs trying to solve Haiti. And the children would be downstairs like, are they done? But I always had a strong sense of identity. They took us to Haiti every summer. And so what sustained me and helped me to understand my place in the world as a Haitian American was the stories from back home. And so I think the most important thing we can do is share those stories and share the diversity of those stories, because there's just so much to Haiti and so little of that story is told in the United States. And so little of that story is told to the children of the diaspora, especially children of my generation, the second generation. And there's so much that's lost. And so anything that reminds them that we come from the first free Black nation in the Western Hemisphere, every day my parents drilled that into us, my mom especially, which is very funny if you know her. And, that really instilled a sense of pride in us. I've never felt anything but pride about being Haitian. And so anything that would do that for a child, I think, would be a gift. We have several questions up front.
And we have time for one more question.
All right.
Good evening, and thank you for this moment. Maybe it's a personal feeling, but when you work for 80, when you create for 80, when you write about 80, I feel that sometimes you can have the fear to be disconnected to the country if you are not in the country. And sometimes you have maybe this feeling that you don't have the right to talk about what happened in the country because you are not here, you are not living, what happened in the country. How do you have this feeling that you have to stay connected to what happened in Haiti, especially in moment like that when it's really painful to stay connected to it? And if not, how do you deal with that? To write about Haiti, but to constantly have this fear that you have to keep this connection to the country, to have the legitimacy to write about it.
I mean, my connection is to the country is not so much about wanting to have legitimacy. It's because I have close family members there, and so I follow the news as reported, of course, and then you follow from what they send you, like the exchanges that you have. But I meet young Haitian Americans all the time who will say like they don't feel like they have permission because often we grew up in. Sometimes you grow up in a house where you're like, so corny. Like, it's kind of like whatever, you start like speaking too loud and of your opinion, and then it's like suddenly you're shut down for your accent or the way you speak the Creole. And so, but I always tell the young people, like, think about the people who go to Haiti 1 week, they write a book. So give yourself permission. So think of like when you feel stuck, think about them. like if they can do it, like so. I mean, it's you can always ask questions. You can always do the research, and also like Roxane was saying, now more and more I think for Haitian Americans of college age or young, there are a lot of books in translation by writers like Yannick Laens. Kayama Glover, who's has translated Franck Etienne from. So I think there could be like you also to read from the source, even if it's from translation, because we have an extraordinary literature. I'm biased, but I think it's one of the best in the Caribbean. Don't hit me, Caribbean literature. And especially given like the circumstances, like the limitations to publication. So I think, and more of it is coming up in English. So as translated also so just like read other people, and then you'll feel less alone, because you have, there's like, you have this, there's that history, there's this legacy. And also I've never seen myself as speaking on behalf of Haiti. I mean, there's like 1 million of us in the same predicament or situation that I'm in, who are children who came, who are sort of next generation. So I used to always think, okay, maybe I'm doing it for my nieces and nephews who've not been to Haiti, and to talk about the situation of what it's like to have come from Haiti at 12. And so, if you're doubt, just put that in the work that, like the struggle, in the work that you're creating. Magali, actress, playwright. We have Magali wants to speak.
Okay, so there is no mic, so I'll just be my actress self. Everybody, can you hear me? Yes.
Magali, tell the people who you are.
I'm Magali Colimo Christopher. I'm the founder of Conchel Productions. We produce works by Caribbeans, plays, and we have a film festival featuring the works of Caribbean film artists coming in October 23rd. Back to you. Sherry, why? What can we do to get your work in cinema? No. Okay. We're all here right now, okay? I've been thinking about this for years. The importance of cinema is this. Our story goes around the world, and people are not reading anymore.
Oh my God, these people are reading.
I'm not talking about these
Oh,
people.
wait.
We are a unique crew of people. I'm talking about waking up those children in Omaha who don't have responsible parents, who are saying Haitian culture means nothing, and they're not finding the books because it's not in the library, it's not in school, and then they discover you in a film. Black Cake, perfect example. So everyone here who loves Edwidge, crowdfund, make her movies. Wow.
Lord, oh boy. Okay, Magali. Okay, merci, Magali.
Well, she asks a good question. Are there any adaptations on the horizon?
No adaptation. Oh no, actually, I think there's some interest. Ismani, there was a young filmmaker who wanted to do a story from Kikak. So, but I used to work in film. I worked for Jonathan Demme when I left school, and I kind of know how that works. It actually, when you work in film, it makes you so appreciate being a writer, like having like having all the control, all the thing. But I as they say in the church, Magali, I receive it. Thank you. One more, this gentleman there. Yes.
The question is, there's a big push in Haiti, Creole, you plan to write anything Creole, or are you both translated in?
Thank you. So Breath as Memory is translated in Creole, and we've done some of the short stories in Kikak as radio plays, and I think one of them might be online because the Duke University has the archive from Radio Haïti Inter. We had done it with Radio Haïti Inter. So, but I because of coming here at age 12, I've always written in English. But there is. I think it would be important to have the works in Creole, which I was glad someone did. And more works are being, I think works that are in the public domain, like Le Petit Prince, has been translated into Creole. So it's really it's necessary. You're absolutely right. There's also a group of young writers, poets who write directly in Creole, and we should support them. I think sometimes we demand that people write in Creole, but then we don't buy them. Mm-hmm. So if they do it, let's also support that work.
Excellent. Well, okay, you've been, this poor young woman, she's been here for a minute.
What is that self-editing process like so you can send it out to publish?
Okay. Here you go.
That's a challenging question. Sometimes you don't know, but I'm going to tell you what I tell my students and also myself. Don't overwork the work. A lot of times people will say, oh, I've revised my novel 20 times. That's 18 times too many. That's not something to be proud of. You should, perfection isn't the goal, excellence is. And so it's when you feel like I have nothing more to offer the story. I have put it all on the page. There's nothing I feel like left to be said. If I'm not done, I keep thinking when I lie down or I'm doing something else, walking the dog, some little thought will come to me, oh, I need to add this. When those thoughts stop coming, I know, okay, I've left it all on the table. I'm done. So just don't overwork the work because fortunately, you are submitting your work to a publication that will edit you, and they will catch what you don't catch. There's always going to be more opportunity to revisit the piece between when you send it off and when it's accepted and when it's published. And that's whether it's a magazine, a book, it doesn't matter. So trust the process and trust yourself and don't overwork the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah, I always know I'm finished when I'm putting the same thing back in that I've been taking out. That's usually when I know I'm done. Well, thank you all
Edwidge
so
Danticat.
much. Roxane Gay, thank you. Thank you. We got a whole flower.
Is this on? Okay. Thank you so much, Edwidge and Roxane, and on behalf of the BCLF. And thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Thank you, everybody. Oh my goodness. All of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Oh.